Our series of state midterm polling continues, and next up is Pennsylvania. And let me tell you, it's a completely different story than our Nevada polling. There's a tendency to lump all the swing states together, but they're actually very different politically. In Pennsylvania, the two main parties have over an 80% share of the state, meaning there are many less independents, 40% less than in Nevada, for instance. These independents also tend not to have followed the nationwide trend that we've seen of independents becoming more conservative over the past 2 years. Pennsylvania suffers proportionally higher than most states from Biden's energy policy, but is thousands of miles from the southern border, and so has suffered less from recent increases in illegal border crossings. So let's get started with the questions. Trump would win a hypothetical 2024 rematch by 6 points in Pennsylvania. Huge news since our final polling of the 2020 cycle had Trump down by 4 points in Pennsylvania. So that's a 10-point swing for Trump since 2020, the same movement we saw in Nevada, and spoiler alert, our upcoming poll in Georgia. Who did Trump gain with the most over the last 2 years? Black voters, 24%, independents, 23%, Hispanic voters, 21%, and women voters, 14%. He hasn't lost with any of the primary demographics, and he has even picked up a point of Democrat support and 2 more points of Republican support. Okay, generic ballot time. Republicans are only up by 1 point, and this is at a time when the national polling has Republicans with a 4 to 7 point lead. So the Republican platform is, in general, less popular in Pennsylvania than it is in the rest of the country on average, and Republicans only get 45% of the vote despite being 41% of the electorate here. The party breakdowns show that Republicans and Democrats both get 85% of their own party vote and each have 10% who are swing voters, but Republicans lead only by 4 points among independents, and that's a far cry from the almost 30-point lead that they have among independents in Nevada. So with rough back-of-the-envelope math, the independents are only contributing about 6 absolute percentage points to the Republican lead here, whereas in Nevada, it's more like 17 points. With race, Republicans are crushing the white vote, while Democrats have a lead among black voters that's roughly equivalent to the nationwide number, and a lead among Hispanic voters that's actually larger than the nation and other swing states, though the Hispanic vote is a pretty small piece of the Pennsylvania overall story. So where do the candidates sit? First, for governor, Josh Shapiro is up on Doug Mastriano by 3 points, the margin of error. But look how low those numbers are. With a 10% not sure response, really anything could happen in the next 2 weeks. If I were in the Mastriano campaign, I would be worried about not making it past 40%. Shapiro gets 20% of the Republican vote, and Mastriano only gets 14% of the Democrat vote, but he is up 3 points among independents. Again, look at those independent numbers. 37% are not sure or plan to vote third party. Maybe some of you viewers who are in Pennsylvania can explain what's going on here, because it seems really crazy that the governor candidates are suffering from perhaps name recognition issues, and I can't believe that when push comes to shove, that 17% of unaffiliated voters really will be voting Green or Libertarian like they seem to be planning. Mehmet Oz is doing slightly better in the Senate race than Mastriano, but he is still down by 2, and his total vote is in the low 40s. 12% say another candidate or not sure, lower than the governor's race, so Oz really needs to lock up most of those voters. He keeps more of his party vote than Doug Mastriano, but he keeps almost as many Democrat votes. But he is only up 1 point among independents. So I have some really magical poll math to show you, but before I do, let me tell you about what's in the rest of the poll. We explore the issues driving Pennsylvanian voters to the polls, and unsurprisingly, the top one is inflation. But perhaps surprisingly, the next highest one is energy policy. The number one issue among Democrat voters, even more pronounced than in national trends, however, is abortion rights, a topic that really isn't on the radar of Republicans and independents compared to the other kitchen table issues. Pennsylvania voters, a good portion who may be unemployed Marcellus shale workers, give Republicans a 5-point edge in trust on the issue of energy policy. And election integrity is just as much on the mind of Pennsylvania voters as it is with national voters, with a strong majority believing that the outcome of the 2020 election was directly affected by fraud in their own state, and 45% thinking widespread cheating is going to affect their state's midterm voting. The poll also covers candidate favorability ratings, so to be honest, everyone is boringly in the low 40s. Okay, now some important math to wrap this up. Even though the Republican lead is less pronounced in Pennsylvania, I'm seeing the same pattern here as I am in other swing states. The generic ballot significantly outperforms the Republican candidates, and Trump significantly outperforms the generic ballot. So here's a message to the somewhat trailing campaigns of Doug Mastriano and Mehmet Oz. Let's compare your leads to the lead Trump has over Biden among Pennsylvania voters. Governor's race first. Trump's lead is 9 points wider than Doug Mastriano's lead is in Pennsylvania, and from top down, 22 points better among Republicans. 14 points better among white voters and 65-year-old plus voters. 13 points better among Hispanic voters, 12 points better among independents, 11 points better among men, and 10 points better among 18 to 39-year-olds. Though, incongruously, Mastriano is doing 6 points better among Democrats and 25 points better among black voters than Trump. Now for the Senate. Trump's lead is 8 points wider than Oz's lead, but Trump does 32 points better among Hispanic voters, 20 points better among 18 to 39-year-olds, 13 points better among independents, 11 points better among Republicans, and 9 points better among men. Oz is only leading by more than Trump among 65-year-old plus voters. The takeaway? What is different between your platform and Trump's? And what can you do to reach those voters with whom you're underperforming? Or the other message, get a Trump rally on the calendar stat, preferably in an area with young, black, Hispanic, or independent voters. Philadelphia, perhaps? I want to take a moment to thank our viewers who've helped us have great success, with our biggest video approaching 10,000 views now, even though this channel has only been live for 2 months. Thanks also to those who've subscribed, but to be honest, it's a really small portion of you. Please click the subscribe button that's about to appear in 10 seconds. It costs you nothing, and it helps us spread the news about our accurate polling.